The North Sea, one of the most treacherous seas in the world. And beneath it? Well, to reach the seabed, you have to go down hundreds of feet. But is it worth it? This is the United Kingdom continental shelf, the UKCS. And in the rocks below the seabed, down as much as another 15 or 20,000 feet, is oil, millions of tons of it. In fact, the latest estimate is that under the seas around Britain, there's enough oil to see the country well into the next century. The problem is, to get the oil up to the surface is a difficult, dangerous, and expensive job. The big oil companies are all working in the North Sea and the other seas surrounding Britain. But oil was only discovered here in the late 60s. The first big find was until 1968. And these seas are some of the roughest in the world. So even now, new technology, new equipment, new expertise are having to be developed all the time. And that's where the Houlder Offshore group comes in. Since 1972, the company has used its engineering skill and ingenuity to establish itself as a leading contractor in both exploration drilling work and underwater maintenance, inspection and repair work. Houlder's expertise lies in designing, owning and operating a variety of drilling rigs and diving support vessels. But how did Houlder Offshore get involved in this sort of work in the North Sea? In 1849, Edwin Houlder formed a company out of his shipping firm, which included two of his brothers. He did not remain with sail for long and was early into steamships. As the years went by, the Houlder flag became well known, and at the end of the last century, the company had expanded enough to form subsidiary shipping companies. In 1912, the interest of two of the brothers was bought out by another major shipping company, Furness Withy. In 1968, the main Houlder company, Houlder Brothers and Company Limited, became a subsidiary of Furness Withy. The Houlder Line was an important subsidiary of Houlder Brothers. At that time, the chairman and chief executive of Houlder Line Limited was John Houlder. He realized the potential of developing vessels and equipment for servicing the oil and gas companies in the North Sea. And in 1972, he persuaded the Furness Withy board to become active in the offshore industry. It was a bold decision, but it reflects the style that has placed Houlder in the forefront of offshore oil and gas exploration, both around the UK and overseas. In 1973, an ore carrier, the Aegis, was converted into a vessel that had the facilities and equipment to support deep-sea divers. It was the first vessel specialized for this purpose. And for divers, he teamed up with the world's best-known diving company, Comex SA of France. The relationship between the two companies has grown significantly over the years. And in 1974, the technical staff of Houlder Offshore began design work on a new concept of diving support vessel. The result was this, the Uncle John. She is a registered seafaring vessel. It can move about, it can be fixed in very precise positions, and indeed, because its 10 powerful thrusters are controlled by computer, even in very rough weather, it can keep in an exact position and work within a few meters of large oil production platforms. Houlder Offshore has been operating Uncle John on contract with Shell in the Brent oil field virtually without a break from when it was built in 1977 to 1984. Another diving support vessel designed and built by the company is the Aurelia. She's as revolutionary in design as the Uncle John, but has different capabilities. These include a revolutionary ballasting system. This system, with a positioning system similar to the Uncle John, enables the unusual hull-shaped vessel to compete in the semi-submersible market. Also, a double bell system allows two teams of divers to work simultaneously, giving it another advantage over conventional hull-shaped vessels. Aurelia has recently worked in Saudi Arabia and is now back in the North Sea, facing the most adverse conditions. Houlder Offshore Limited has a wholly owned company, Houlder Comex Limited, formed to manage its diving support vessels, DSVs, like the Uncle John and the Aurelia. And the diving services on the DSVs are now provided by another company, Comex Houlder Diving Limited, which in turn is half owned by Houlder Offshore. The other 50% is owned by Comex SA. But diving is just one part of Houlder Offshore's activities. The other is drilling. There is a wholly owned company, Houlder Marine Drilling, which manages rigs on behalf of various owning companies in which Houlder Offshore also has a stake. One of these is Kings North Marine Drilling Limited, in which Houlder Offshore has a 77% ownership stake. Like the rest of the group, Houlder Marine Drilling has its main base in Aberdeen. From there, it operates and manages drilling rigs such as the Shelf Driller. 1/3 owned by Houlder Offshore and built under the group's supervision in Dunkirk, it was delivered in 1982. It's capable of drilling in 300 feet of water and of working in very rough sea and weather conditions. The Kings North UK, which in turn is owned by Kings North Marine Drilling Limited, was one of 2 similar rigs built in Finland. It has worked in the past, carrying out exploration, development and completion work for many international operators, but has worked most extensively for BP and Conoco. The sister rig, the Dundee Kings North, has worked with a number of North Sea operators like Conoco, developing the Hutton field. She has an excellent operating record, typical of equipment in the Houlder Group. Up to now, 35% of her time was spent drilling, 24% tripping, only 4% waiting in bad weather, and under 2% moving and mooring. The High Seas Driller is one of our most recent rigs. We own 1/3, but manage and operate her through Houlder Marine Drilling. She was built in Korea and specifically designed to operate in harsh environmental conditions. She can drill in up to 1,800 feet of water, withstanding 100-foot waves and 100-mile-an-hour winds, with a 3,100-ton variable deck load. She's also got first-class accommodation for 100 people. And people in the Houlder Group matter to Houlder. Those who work offshore are well-trained and very well looked after. But it's not only those who are working at sea. The onshore staff are equally important. Working from the operations centre in Aberdeen, they ensure that the rigs are always properly serviced. And when spares are needed, they ensure that they're rushed out as quickly as possible. In return, the company strives to provide first-class working and recreational facilities on board its vessels and rigs. On the west coast of England, in the Irish Sea, lies Morecambe Bay, where in 1975, Hydrocarbons Great Britain Limited discovered natural gas in a large, shallow reservoir. Economic exploitation of this resource dictated that the unusual technique of slant drilling be adopted in the development phase of the field. Normally, when the oil or gas is 15 to 20,000 feet down, a rig can drill a range of holes from one location, and the bore holes naturally curve away after 1,500 feet. But in Morecambe Bay, where the gas is unusually close to the surface, gas drainage can be almost doubled by setting the well conductors at a 30-degree angle. This, in turn, has halved the number of expensive platforms required to produce a uniform drainage pattern. In 1981, the operator decided to design 2 unique slant drilling substructures with 2 jack-up platform tenders to support them. Hydrocarbons Great Britain were to own one unit, Morecambe Flame, and Houlder Offshore were to own the other, Bay Driller, and provide operational personnel and management for both units. Drilling operations commenced in 1983, and the new drilling techniques were quickly perfected. Houlder Marine Drilling also own and operate 2 land rigs designed to work in environmentally sensitive areas. HMD is currently working in central England. It's small, it's very quiet, and it doesn't mar the beauty or tranquility of the countryside. HMD-1 is a larger rig. It's currently working in Indonesia and forms part of a new drive into further business fields by our international division. As well as Indonesia, the company has a joint venture with the Chinese National Offshore Oil Corporation to own, operate and manage drilling units. The South Seas Driller, our most recent unit, is operating offshore in China and is managed by our Chinese group, China Nanhai Houlder Drilling Corporation. This company also manages the Nanhai 2 on behalf of our partners in the venture. The Nanhai 2 and CNHDC were one of the first groups to commence drilling in the deep water offshore sector of China. In addition to these, the company has ventures in India, Malaysia, and is continuing towards expansion into other areas. But if drilling innovations have been made by Houlder, they are matched by subsea developments. This diving bell is being lowered from the Uncle John. Inside are 3 divers. To work under the sea at depths of up to 700 feet means that you have to be specially pressurized and that you have to breathe not oxygen and nitrogen as we do, but a mixture of pure oxygen and helium. In even deeper water, up to 1,200 feet, a combination of hydrogen and to make this transition takes many hours, and also for a diver's body to adapt again to normal conditions is a slow process. So CHD divers spend as long as 4 weeks at a time living either in diving bells like this or in life support chambers on the surface. Working like this means that teams of divers can work round the clock, commuting between the sealed surface chambers and the underwater work sites. Comex Houlder Diving were the first to use 2 bells to improve the safety and working time of the divers while commuting. When divers are working, they are completely dependent on their life support system, and the men, like these on Uncle John, whose responsibility it is to look after them. Although Comex Houlder Diving still has links with Comex SA, it carries out all of its own research and supplies all of its own equipment. CHD itself is a British company. All its divers, and there are some 400 fully trained divers, are British, and so also are almost the entire management. The company has, though, through John Houlder, developed a very valuable relationship with Comex, which results in it being able to offer companies operating in offshore waters diving services that are second to none. First among these services is underwater inspection. CHD operates the largest and most sophisticated remote-controlled vehicle-type subsea inspection unit in the world. The technology that's been developed in the North Sea is less than 10 years old. And for every oil company, it's essential that their underwater installations are regularly inspected. They need to be checked for any signs of stress, of damage or of wear and tear. Comex Houlder Diving use a whole range of techniques for this inspection work. They have underwater cameras, stereo cameras that can not only show cracks, but provide data that can be analyzed to reveal the depth and seriousness of cracks. As well as that, the CHD inspection unit uses X-ray photography to measure the internal corrosion of a pipeline. And then, of course, there's stills photography and routine visual inspection as well. All the divers are trained to know what to look for. The leg of a platform may, to the layman's eye, appear to be damaged, yet to the skilled diver, it may be perfectly satisfactory, or vice versa. So that's underwater inspection. It's the fastest growing of all diving services, but it's not the only service that Comex Houlder Diving provide. There are also undersea engineering and subsea construction. The amount of underwater work that needs to be done is enormous. Pipelines, for example, that connect oil platforms to terminals have all to be connected. It can't be done above water. So Comex has developed special welding equipment that enables their divers to undertake this work on the seabed. But of course, welding can't be done in water. Special habitats and welding areas have to be constructed and lowered to the seabed, for divers to work in dry, shirt-sleeve conditions. CHD has specialized in this type of work and indeed hold the record for managing the greatest number of pipeline connections, called hyperbaric welds, in one season. When working in the Cormorant field, CHD divers managed 9 welds in 100 days. It may not sound much, but try to imagine the job. The pace at which you could work on the seabed, and difficulties and dangers that are involved. To eliminate these dangers, Comex Houlder Diving has become the world leader in fully automated underwater welding. Another underwater service that the Houlder Group provides is an emergency pipeline repair service. CHD always have a standby unit. If an oil-carrying pipeline is damaged, immediate repair is essential, and CHD divers have made some very important repairs. For example, in 1978, a 36-inch oil pipeline linking the Cormorant oil field to the Sullenvoe oil terminal was repaired. The diving companies in the Houlder Offshore group provide other services as well, but in the end, they can best be summed up by saying that Comex Houlder Diving has the vessels, like Uncle John and Aurelia, the equipment, like this Comex saturation diving spread, the subsea equipment, like this hydraulic pipe alignment frame, to undertake any subsea operation that's required. On top of that, they have the divers and the support staff, technicians, engineers and backup personnel to ensure that every subsea project is undertaken effectively from concept to completion. The Houlder Offshore Group manages assets worth more than £200 million. The management and staff in the group are highly qualified and very experienced in offshore work. The activities of the different companies are very diverse, but the very fact that all these diverse operations associated with the oil and gas industries are undertaken by one group is an asset in itself. The Houlder Offshore Engineering Group has been specially formed to market specific expertise and technical advice to many different companies, as well as our own. They've advised on schemes such as the Sun Balmoral project, and even deep sea work for the Royal Navy. And again, the fact that the design and research teams work closely together means that new developments for any part of the world can be worked out. The future of the Houlder Offshore Group depends upon its strong young management team, upon the highly skilled technical staff that it employs, and upon its being able to continue to develop technology for the exploration and exploitation of oil and gas reserves. Today, in terms of capital assets, Houlder Offshore represents nearly half the Furnace Withy Group. It's an offshore company that can list among its clients all the major oil companies operating in offshore waters. The management are already operating in many parts of the world with their different services. This is a British group in ownership, but an international one in its activities, and one that leads the way in drilling and in diving and offshore work.